Self-reliance is often framed as a matter of stockpiling supplies, but in Chapter 15 of Joe Bandel's The Oak Matrix Unleashed, it takes a radical turn toward the metaphysical, arguing that the ultimate survival tool isn't a bunker, but the reclamation of your internal authority against a world designed to drown it out. This chapter explores the tension between the divine spark, that quiet inner nudge, and the external forces like governments and social media that demand our conformity. It's a provocative take on what it means to be truly free.
It's a fascinating pivot because Bandel isn't just talking about independence in a political sense. He's looking at authority through the lens of what he calls modern survivalism. In his view, the real threat to our survival isn't just physical scarcity, but the slow erosion of the true will. He describes this as a soul's blueprint. When we outsource our decision-making to external authorities, be they religious institutions or the latest viral trend, we aren't just being followers, we're essentially stalling our own growth. He uses the term anarchist knight to describe someone who has decided to prioritize that inner voice above all else.
The term anarchist knight sounds like a complete contradiction. Knights are historically defined by their oaths to a lord or a crown, total external authority. Anarchy, by definition, is the absence of that. How does Bandel reconcile those two extremes into a single identity?
It's all about where the oath is directed. In the Order of Anarchist Knights, or OAK, the knightly pledge is to the self, specifically to the master within. It's a commitment to personal integrity. Bandel argues that this isn't a recipe for chaos, which is how people usually view anarchy. Instead, he sees it as a form of responsible anarchy, where natural order emerges because individuals are acting according to their highest nature. He points out that external authorities often impose one-size-fits-all rules that can't possibly fulfill an individual's deepest needs. By being a knight for your own destiny, you're protecting that inner spark from the pressure to conform.
So it's an internal hierarchy rather than an external one. But that feels like it could easily slip into pure selfishness. If everyone is just following their own true will, how do we not end up in constant conflict with one another?
That's where his concept of duality as a loving embrace comes in. He draws a direct parallel to the oak tree. The roots are deep, quiet, and internal, while the branches are expansive and interact with the world. He suggests that when you are truly aligned with your inner authority, you aren't in competition with others. You're fulfilling your unique purpose, which naturally ripples out to benefit humanity. It's the idea that a world of authentic people creates harmony, not war. He specifically mentions that this inner authority, which he also calls the Christ Spirit or the God of our hearts, is universal. It's like sunlight. If everyone is growing toward that same light in their own way, they don't need to control each other.
It's a beautiful metaphor, the oak tree. But let's look at the hardcore reality he mentions. He's essentially saying we shouldn't trust experts or rule books if they clash with our gut. In a complex society, isn't that a bit dangerous? We have experts for a reason. Surgeons, engineers, legal scholars. Is he suggesting we ignore specialized knowledge in favor of a quiet nudge?
He differentiates between technical knowledge and the authority over one's life path. He's not saying ignore physics, but rather don't let the world tell you who you are or what you need. He's critiquing the way we've been programmed to seek permission for our happiness. Think about how often people stay in soul-crushing jobs or toxic relationships because they feel they should, or because social structures demand it. That's the external dominance he's fighting. He frames this as a survival issue, because if you're living the wrong program, you're effectively dead in the water. You have no resilience because you aren't fueled by your own excitement or what he calls weekly wins.
He mentions weekly wins as a metric for success. That sounds very results-oriented for a spiritual philosophy. How does he define a win in this context? Is it financial or something more abstract?
It's about alignment. A win is any action that fulfills a core need, emotional, physical, or spiritual, that was signaled by your inner authority. In his essay, he suggests identifying a need, like more creativity, and then taking a small, actionable step, like drawing for 10 minutes. The win is the energy you get from that. It's a feedback loop. Your intuition gives you a signal, maybe a feeling of boredom or a sudden spark of interest, and you act on it. If it feels right, that's a win. He's very practical about this. He even suggests a survival check-in where you rate your fulfillment every week. If it's low, you're likely being controlled by external pressures and need to adjust.
That sounds like a heavy burden of self-monitoring. If you're constantly questioning if every decision is true will or external programming, doesn't that lead to a kind of paralysis? Sometimes a rule is just a rule, and following it makes life easier.
Bandel would say that following rules just because is exactly how we lose ourselves. He admits that reclaiming this authority isn't easy because we are constantly bombarded by opinions, but he offers tools to make it a habit. One of them is the Spark Journal, where you write down 3 things your conscience whispers to you each day. It's about building trust with yourself. It's like rooting a seedling. You start small so that when the big external pressures come, the ones that demand you sacrifice your integrity, you have the strength to stand firm like that oak tree.
He uses a lot of religious or esoteric language. Christ Spirit, Divine Spark, Master Within. For someone who isn't religious, does this philosophy still hold up, or is it dependent on a belief in the supernatural?
He's actually very inclusive with those terms. He explicitly states that whether you call it God, your conscience, or just your gut, it's the same universal force. It's an organic Gnosticism. The core idea is that the truth is found within, not in a book or a church. He's tapping into a long tradition of thinkers who believe that the individual is the highest authority of their own experience. Even if you strip away the divine labels, you're left with a very modern psychological argument for autonomy and self-actualization. It's about being the knight of your own destiny instead of a pawn in someone else's game.
It's interesting that he links this to modern survivalism. Usually, survivalists are portrayed as being very focused on the external, tools, terrain, defense. Bandel is saying the most important terrain is your own mind. If you can't trust your own judgment, you've already lost.
Exactly. He argues that transformation can't happen from the outside. A government can't make you happy, and a religion can't make you enlightened if you're just going through the motions. Real change is internal. He describes duality not as a war between me and them, but as a loving embrace. You don't have to reject the world. You just have to ensure your inner self is the one guiding the dance. You absorb nutrients from the outer, shared experiences, friends, even supportive structures, but the inner is what directs where the branches grow. It's about finding that balance where you can be part of society without losing your spark.
But what about the anarchist knight pledged to prioritize the inner voice at all costs? That at all costs part is quite intense. It sounds like he's advocating for a level of defiance that could be socially isolating.
It can be, but he views that isolation as temporary or as a filtering process. If you express your needs honestly and follow your true will, some people or institutions might fall away because they can no longer control you. But he believes you will eventually find supportive externals, friends and environments that encourage your path rather than stifling it. The goal isn't to be alone, it's to be authentic. He even suggests that in relationships, you shouldn't conform to your partner's expectations just to keep the peace. You should express your needs lovingly. That's the knight part, having the courage to be yourself even when it's uncomfortable.
It's a high bar. Most people are afraid of that kind of honesty because of the social consequences. He's essentially calling for a kind of spiritual bravery.
He is, and he acknowledges that many people give up. He asks why some push through the odds while others fail, and his answer is the willingness to act. That's the difference between a person who just feels a nudge and a knight who follows it. He sees this as the key to avoiding the toxic brainwashing of modern life. If you aren't actively listening to your own authority, you're default listening to someone else's. There is no neutral ground.
The focus on true will also implies that we each have a specific purpose. That's a very deterministic view for an anarchist philosophy. What if my true will is just to sit on a beach and do nothing? Is that allowed in the OAK framework?
If sitting on a beach truly fulfills your deepest needs and allows you to thrive without harming others, then yes. But he defines true will as something that naturally uplifts. It's not just a selfish whim. It's the reason you're here. Usually that involves some form of generative action, creating, helping, or being. He believes that when you're truly in your true will, you feel energized and clear-headed. If sitting on the beach makes you feel stagnant and depressed after 3 days, then it wasn't your true will. It was just an escape.
So the true will is discovered through trial and error, through these weekly wins and survival check-ins. It's not a static thing you find once and you're done. It's a constant process of tuning in.
Precisely. It's a dynamic path. He even provides a specific OAK affirmation ritual where you state, "I follow my inner self above all." When you face external pressure, you pause and ask, "Does this align with my true will?" It's about building that pause into your life, the space between the external command and your internal response. That space is where your freedom lives.
It's a radical shift in perspective, moving from how do I fit into this world to how do I remain true to myself while living in it. Bandel's Anarchist Night is a call to take full responsibility for your own happiness and direction.
And it's a call that suggests we are more capable than we think. We don't need permission to be happy, and we don't need a rule book to be good. We just need to listen to that spark. It's about turning self-doubt into confident action and seeing that when we thrive as individuals, we're actually doing the best thing possible for the rest of the world. It's an empowering, if challenging, vision of what survival really means in the 21st century.
The idea that our personal fulfillment is the ultimate contribution to humanity is a compelling way to wrap up this exploration of internal authority. If you found these ideas on self-reliance and the true will intriguing, consider sharing this discussion with someone who might be looking for their own inner spark.